Lucy, you join us.
Almost on, yeah.
We'll get underway, folks. I'd just like to welcome everybody here. We've got quite a full agenda going through. We do have a meeting, another meeting, I think it's at 1 o'clock. So can only go 2 hours without a break. But I think we'll have a bit of a slow start, fast middle, and a fast end.
Sounds like the Olympics, Mr. Chairman.
Just before we get underway, I just thought I'd like to make a mention on behalf of the council, thinking about the tragedy that unfolded in Riverton over the weekend, and I just want to put our thoughts and our sympathies out to the families, the community, and the emergency services that were involved in that incident, and whether or not this council will have any involvement in the aftermath of that, I'm unsure, but I just thought on behalf of the council I would mention that there now before this meeting. I thought it was appropriate. So thank you. Right. We got any apologies?
Lyndall, Eric and Paul.
Okay.
I'm happy to move.
The seconder for that. Second. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? That's carried. Thank you very much. Declarations of interest. Not seeing anything. Okay, very good. Any public forum petitions, deputations? No. No. So we're going to look at the minutes of the last meeting on the 8th of May. I guess we've all had a look at those. They all seem pretty right to the committee.
Yeah,
Morris, anything in there?
let's get that done. I'll move a drum correct record, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, excellent. We've got a seconder for that. All those in favour? Thanks, John. All those in favour? Yes, it's carried. Good work. Notification of extraordinary items. Any urgent business? Good. Let's go into some questions. Now, there are some questions that have been put forward here. I do see on item number 7. These ones, the first question is from Councillor Pemberton, which I just submitted anyway. So look, do you want to talk to that, John?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, just wanting to know when possible for Randall and his team to bring us the proposition, I guess, for what was discussed in the LTP for the projects in the pipe works for Winton and Lumsden. Just get the ball rolling on that, really.
Yep, that's a pretty clear question, isn't it? I see, Randall, you're teeing things up there at the moment, so the floor's yours. If you could answer that, please.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the question, Councillor. The Winton project, we do have a 2D model that covers the area of interest already built. So we have commenced the options analysis for that work to undertake to identify what's the best mechanisms to achieve that outcome that we consulted on the LTP. Once that options analysis is complete, we'll be including that in the business plan and bringing that back to council. That work is scheduled for year 2 of the LTP, and it was deliberate to give us time to undertake that work. For the Lumsden, we have got a 2D hydraulic model planned for that area of interest there, but we do need the bathymetric data for the base data of the model. So we're planning or hoping to get that bathymetric survey completed probably by Christmas or early next year. I'll allow the model to be built, and then we'll undertake the options analysis for that project as well.
Morris.
Thank you, Randall. Now, will this analysis of the options include methods of reducing flood flows further upstream and storing water in structures upstream, or slowing the flow, so that all of that is taken into account as well as the option of building stop banks?
Thank you, Councillor, through your chair. The options analysis at the moment for Winton are focusing probably on 4 or 5 of the choices that we've got in front of us. So there's options for the true left, there's options for the true right stop bank alignments, also the option of raising the banks, but we'll be promoting the one that provides the best level of service and most cost-effective one for that asset. In terms of your question regarding the slow the flow outcomes, we'd probably want that slow the flow project completed, and then some analysis of those outcomes undertaken. We start to implement on those.
So sorry, just a clarification, Randall. The which comes first? Is it the overall flood management and the catchment scale, or the stop bank construction?
Ideally, we would complete the floodplain management plans, but that's some years away yet. So we've identified sections of the network that we should be prioritising now, and that sections for Winton and Lumsden are 2 of those.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, just following on for that, I'm assuming that our staff will be looking at the Hawke's Bay report with a lot of interest, because there's a lot of the recommendations that are not just generic to Hawke's Bay that all councils need to be looking at. So I'm assuming before we make any decisions, we as Morris has said, we'll be looking at all those options. The other thing coming through in that report is our focus should be on known defects because of their insurance risk, etc. But we'll look forward to getting a report back in due time.
Jeremy.
These are the non-funded ones, aren't they, Randall, you're talking about? Non-government funded ones, I should say.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor, that's correct.
So when was it next year, or do you think this year we'd see business cases for them?
I think we've got the tools to undertake or complete that options analysis, with one exception, is that we're still undertaking some staff resourcing for that.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, I'm online now. Yeah, Rebecca can't make it. She's an apology. She rang me this morning.
Ellie, could you just...
Yeah, she's done
that.
Just a question. So just to clarify that there's Morris, I'm back in Morris here in regards to the overall. Is it going to be an option? Well, in regards to what you're saying, Morris. No, I'm asking you. I'm not asking. Just to clarify that we are looking at other. I mean, you said there were 5 options, but is that one of not necessarily building higher banks, so to speak?
Yeah, my gut feeling is the stop bank alignment and the hydraulic efficiency will achieve the outcomes that we want for those for the Winton project at least.
I'll just add to that, Randall, that when we start to look at these projects, especially around Winton and Lumsden, there will be quite a high level of community interest, and that we go to those communities first before people start talking about all the diggers and the machinery down at the river. We need to talk to them and talk about what we're proposing to do. I think it'll be good to preload that discussion into the community before the work begins. So it's just a suggestion. Rightio, are we quite satisfied with that question? We've got another couple there we can move on to. There's two question 2 and 3. I just submitted these on an email. I didn't think they'd be picked up at this meeting, so they're last year I had a discussion with a large chemical applicator bid contractor in Central Southland about another amnesty. I think this council's had them before. Very concerned about they had to go and clean out a farmer's shed, and he was quite shocked the amount of half-used, quarter-used drums that were sitting there. So he sort of felt it's about time that we facilitate another one of these. So I don't know exactly how it could happen or how we could do it, but the problem is the big rule, like I said in this question, mercantile providers do sell a lot of chemicals, and a lot are unused and a lot do sit there, and whether or not it's worth understanding there and doing something about that. So that's one question there. Could Fiona, I see Fiona, do you want to come up and talk about that? Have we undergone these amnesties before or something along those lines, and what's the likelihood that we could do something again, or the need?
Absolutely. So there's a couple of things here in terms of promoting, through you, Mr. Chairman, the chemical recovery. So the first thing I would say is we've been in contact since your question came in with Ag Recovery. So it was 2020 we had the last one-stop shop chemical amnesty, and they've got us and one other region on the books for 2025. So can I say, when we did it in 2020, we supported Ag Recovery from an Environment Southland perspective. We provided some funding to help with that, and we also provided on-ground staff. But it's quite an undertaking. But as you point out, it's a really important thing that needs to happen. So that's the first thing I'd say is look out for more information and planning. It's not for this year, but it is programmed in for next year. The other thing too is, and we can perhaps come back and do some work actually around this with communications around promoting chemical recovery. So Ag Recovery is a key company in the region that receives chemical containers, and there are linkages to some of the companies that actually sell these products. So important that we continue to make people aware of that in our community. And obviously the other thing that isn't being mentioned, but we're really strongly encouraging our farmers to be looking after their baled trap, so collecting it and managing and disposing of it through the mechanisms that we have in Southland. So obviously Recycle South's one, Ag Recovery is another. So yeah, all of those things on the radar.
So just for clarification, the Ag Recovery primarily line of business is the drums themselves. We're talking about the actual chemical, so they have the facility to handle the chemical.
So that will be through that one-stop shop, or you can book in for pickups to happen as well. But again, I'm keen to come back and provide some information perhaps out into our community via comms around that. Yeah, and that's the one-stop shop. It's very much around people bringing old chemicals. They have in the past done quite targeted pickups, so things like DDT and so forth.
I think there should be some onus on the people selling the chemical.
Yes.
We should facilitate, but I wouldn't like to see a large amount of funding go from this council to holding an event like that. But that's just my view anyway. Nicole?
Look, just on your question, I'm assuming some of this chemical in a farmer's shed is some pretty nasty stuff that goes well before any schemes that have been put in. But it is important that there is a facility to get rid of some of that stuff, because the last thing we want is getting into groundwater, etc.
Any other questions regarding that? No? I'll just move on to the last one then. This was a question that was put to me by a chair of a catchment group. What process is to compost dead stock instead of digging your traditional offal hole? And it says there, it's a process in development given some national publicity by Nadi and Carlos Lim, where containment was established. Fine grained sawdust is used to decompose dead animals. Now, look, I'm aware that John's had some experience in this. Do you like to make a wee bit of comment around?
Yeah, look, we use it. We use the straw, but that's on a sealed surface. But I guess is what do we do with the product? We're just sort of using the veggie patches and stuff like that. And what are the regulations around replication for pastoral farmers? It's the complication I can see coming out. This is what do we do with the product if we're solely pastoral farming?
Yeah. What are, I guess that's the key point, is what are the regulations around that composting of dead stock? Do you know, Fiona, can you help us with that?
So what I will do is come back to you on the specific details. So what I would say is a couple of years ago, we had quite a conversation when you'll remember the lamb collection processes stopped and people were suddenly faced with what are they going to do. And so we did quite a lot of media communications in that time around the good practices for disposing of stock on farm in a situation where it wasn't an offal hole per se. It was actually within kind of paddocks and smaller scale kind of disposal. So that's the dead animal side of it. And then in terms of your disposing of sawdust and other materials from, there are rules in the proposed Southland Water and Land Plan that relate to that. And I'll need to come back to you with some specific details that relate to both the disposal of the sawdust, but also the disposal of animals. And again, there's some, as I say, it's really important. There are some good practices around groundwater levels in particular that we need to be aware of, and also some year plan considerations.
Yeah. I think we were probably angling is more clarity from MPI around, blood got stopped being used a few decades ago, and I think this will fall under the same thing. I wonder as an opportunity, we talked about it when we had the young guys with they were doing the tree planting and Robert brought up the use of peat. Is there an opportunity with this compost to be used within the nursery industry, being that it's a highly organic, high carbon product that as we say, goes pretty well in veggie patches? So is there an opportunity there?
Yeah, definitely. And of course, when you start digging holes, they start filling up with water, and then you're looking at decomposting stock, and that provides a lot of other problems. So it could be something worth promoting, but we'll find out first exactly what can and can't be done.
Mr. Chairman, can I just return briefly to the just a sentence information I've got here around the ag recovery chemical collection. Sorry, just if I can read out, Mr. Chairman, farmers can book now on the ag recovery system via their website for a chemical collection rather than containers. There's free disposal of chemicals in containers under 60 litres if the manufacturers are a brand member of the ag recovery scheme. So I guess the question would be some of those older chemicals that people perhaps have stored in their shed for many years might not fit into that, but certainly for ones containers that are branded as per the ag recovery scheme, there is free pickup for small amounts of that. Yeah. So making people aware of this, I think, is really important. Thank you.
Jeremy.
I hate to say it, but I'm just looking at farm plan certification and things like that. Do we actually take it to these sections within those farm plans about chemical storage, health and safety around that, which will be a good way of obviously.
An integrated farm plan should be.
You've got to have handlers, certificates and things like that. So if anybody's got chemicals, it'll be another wee thing that should be ticked off when they're.
And certainly through you, Mr. Chairman, within the an integrated farm plan approach, which considers animal welfare, chemical storage, greenhouse gases, that's sort of the space where you would expect to see that information, and certainly from a health and safety point of view in terms of how those are stored, appropriate signage and so forth.
No, that's a good point, Jeremy. So those chemicals will probably just sit there unless there's a pathway to get them out of those sheds. So that's, I guess, find a way to do that. Look forward to coming back on. Thanks, Fiona.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We'll go on to Chairman and Councillors' reports. Any reports for this committee? Anything you've been up to, Nicol?
Well, just a brief report. Jeremy Morris and myself attended Winsome Skerritt's matangi the other day at Bluff. It was a very good reflection on her life. there were a couple who've done a lot in Southland environmentally, and Michael, obviously, Teal Merriman was the original conduit that has actually got us into the space we've actually had over the last few years. So it was good to be there. A big crowd, and quite a number of senior staff, including who also attended. And so yeah, I'll leave it at that. But it was good to actually attend.
Yeah, and thanks for representing the council. And I think it was totally appropriate that we put these meetings off for that day, and they're rescheduled for today anyway. So thanks. Any other reports? Okay. So we're going to move on to the main section, which are all the reports, and we're going to move to 9.1. Fiordland Marine Guardians letter, and I see Ali's here to talk, but this is a report by Nick. Just Nick's on the screen. Nick, do you want to have a wee talk first, and then Ali talk about the letter? Would that be okay?
Yep.
Thank you.
Hi everyone. Sorry, I'm a bit locked up. I hope you can hear me properly. So Fiordland Marine Guardians have just raised a few concerns that they'd like to talk to us about around the situation down at Bluff and how it relates to potential transfer of things to Fiordland. So really, I'll leave it over to Ali to go into it and what she can actually bring to that. So, yeah.
Thanks, Nick. Ali, we do have the letter here in the agenda, and it's pretty clear of what you're asking for at the end of the letter. At the last paragraph, you're very clear around that. But if you'd like to go over that request, please do.
You muted Ali.
Okay. Good morning, councillors. Thanks for the opportunity to be here, and you've no doubt read our letter. And I guess the wider concern that we have is, you just need to see what's happened with Undaria within the Fiordland Marine area, and that incursion has been huge. Environment Southland has had a big part to play in that. A lot of money has been spent, millions of dollars, and it just shows. We still don't know where it came, but places like Buff and or Rakiura are key sort of sites where these marine pests can be transferred to a, hopefully what was a pristine place like the Fiordland Marine area. So I'd just first like to say an apology from Chair Rebecca McLeod. She's got a conflict this morning. But we're pleased to see that you're collaborating with Southport to integrate, to scope out integrating a haul-out facility. And they're proposing that would be with the synchro lift at Bluff. This has certainly been talked about for a long time, so I'm pleased to see that some progress has been made. Rebecca asked me to raise this morning, because it's been talked about in the past at Guardians meeting, is to look at the option of a travel lift, which is actually a four-wheel drive cradle that would pick up a vessel, take it to the place where it's going to be cleaned, and then bring it back and insert it back into the water. I just wondered if that had been discussed at all, or if something like that could be added to the scope of work that's going to be in the business case. Something like this, it could make things a little bit easier, and could also be a really good economic development opportunity for Bluff.
Thank you for that, Ali. Look, I assume the committee has read this letter, but I'll just read out that last paragraph of the letter. We are requesting that the council investigates these pollution events from the use of the synchro lift, and that it takes all appropriate action to prevent this happening any time in the near future. So you're very clear and direct around that ask. So look, Nick, would you like to pop in now and respond to that letter if you could? Or...
Yes. So thanks, Ali. That was thanks for raising that. We do acknowledge that this has taken a wee bit of time to deal with. but we're working on that now. In terms of your suggestion around travel lift, it has been looked at and considered, but at this time, unless there's a massive scope for extra need for this, economically, it's not a viable option at this point in time. But it is there and can be included if the scoping does indicate that there is a need for much more haul out type facility.
Okay, thanks for that.
Thanks, Nick. I'm just wondering, before we get to some questions, would Donna or Ellie like to contribute to this discussion? If you've got something to contribute, please come up the front. Yes or no, at this point? Come in later on.
Possibly not now. If that's all right, we need to think about that from a perspective.
No worries. Bruce May, then. Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, just very briefly, we have had some, at a broader level, we've had some dialogue with Southport around the upcoming regional coastal plan review and the existing agreement that the FMG letter refers to. Southport are focused around their environmental performance. They've created an additional position down there with a specific focus on environmental management, and they are working through an environmental management plan process at the moment. So this is timely feedback and enables us to flag that issue to Southport and put it in front of the centre in their thinking about their management of the overall facility. But they certainly are dedicating some more resource towards environmental management plan preparation at the moment.
Thank you. Got some questions, Nicol, and then Jeremy, I think.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this has been an ongoing matter for a number of years, and all things have been dropped with changes in personnel, and I think ICC dropped back what they were prepared to do. But it's like the synchro lift is fine for those larger vehicles, but we know there are a lot of smaller recreational vehicle vessels that are going forward. I'd like to know more about travel lift that Ellie's actually mentioned, because that would solve some of the cost issues of the haul out we're talking about. You've got to have a containment area. If a travel lift is a viable option, then you could use existing containment areas. I think we need a report to come back to council on the options, on the costs, because we know what happens if you do nothing. We've already had the Inderia incident, and I think we need to move with some urgency. I know we've got a small amount in the budget this year, which is really, I guess, is modelling what the options are. But yes, I would certainly like to see a comprehensive report with some urgency and see what the other partners. I mean, ICC should be involved in this as well. If it's a slip, an extra slipway that's got benefits to the public, but I think yes, we certainly this has been an ongoing issue, and it hasn't made the progress we would have hoped probably 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah, look, I think that's a common sense approach. There has to be some urgency around this. This project has been in the background for a number of years, and it's a key point of contact for all that Fiordland area, that all the work and the investment that we continue to put into there. So I think it's really important. Morris.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I see that the letter says that there is a potential breach of this rule resulting in a pollution event, and that any pollution event would be a potential breach of this agreement. I wonder whether the discharge of wash water back into the sea is a discharge, and whether or not that is authorised. Sounds like it might not be, and if it's not authorised, then it's illegal, and we shouldn't be allowing it to happen, surely.
Who could give some context to that? Ellie, thank you.
Sorry, through you, Chair. We will, myself and Donna will get together and we'll do a full investigation about what's happening with the current synchro lift. So there's two matters. There's what's happening with the current synchro lift and whether it is compliant or not within the existing rules in the plan, both biosecurity rules and the RMA rules. And then there's the what do we do about it in terms of all of the other boats and the things that Synchrolyft. So it's two different issues. And I think Nick's got a paper coming up on that second issue, and Donna and I will take an action away to fully investigate what's happening in terms of any discharges that may or may not be happening.
Jeremy, just, you might want to stay here, Ali, just a question.
Oh, no, I was just saying the next item, we're covering all this in regards to reports.
Yeah.
Anyways.
I think I agree with Nicole, some urgency, and I just see those, the scheduled timeline. Maybe we need to be a bit more ambitious with that phase 2 working. I'm just looking at that. So,
Next item. The second paper that's
Yeah, that's the next item. That's what I mean, there's 2 items there.
very good.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay.
I'm happy to move.
You happy to move that item?
Happy to second, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All those in favour?
Aye.
Yes, that's carried. Thank you very much. Right. It's 9.1. Yes, go to 9.2, blood fallout.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you for you, Mr. Chair. Most of this has already sort of been discussed through this previous discussion, but we acknowledge that this has been around for a wee while and for various reasons has been delayed. We now have a bit of a priority and resource put towards it to get this underway. There's a table there of a timeline, but we can revisit that based on your suggestion there, Mr. Chairman. But the idea is we will be looking at doing a bit of scoping around this and reporting back late September around the various options around that. And we could then, as part of that, explore that need for looking at a additional travel lift or something along those lines. If the need arises, then we could look at that. Our initial investigation to that was that would mean would be requiring buying extra land, it would be requiring extra area, and therefore it was a costly exercise for that. And unless there's actually a need for much greater use of, because it's just another alternative form of haul out, our priority is the hull cleaning aspect of things. So that's what we were focusing on initially. But we can explore that if the analysis comes through that there is a high demand for this, we can then explore looking at do we need to put an additional aspect down there, such as a travel lift.
Very good. Thanks. Nick, we've got a question here from Jeremy.
Have we already put the 400,000 into this, or was it budgeted to spend 400,000?
When this project was started back in 2017-18, there was an agreement had between us, ICC, and Southport around investigating options of upgrading the boat ramp that was down there, which ICC were going to lead, and we were going to tag on a haul-out facility to that. As part of the agreement, we did at that time spend $400,000. At least that's what I understand. As to getting what the records are of where that's been spent, we've been trying to get that off ICC, but have had no luck as to what that's been spent on. The boat ramp initially was supposed to be upgraded to make room for the larger vessels, but due to costs and various changes of personnel and projects, that was downgraded to just a mere sort of very upgrade. So it wasn't suitable for us to add that on, and then the area that it was going to be at really wasn't suitable to fit that sort of facility in. So the answer is yes, we have put 400,000 into this, but we actually don't know where it's gone. Technically at this stage. Given to ICC. Okay, well, I take it we're asking some pretty serious questions about that. We have been, had no luck in terms of answers.
Ellie, you might want to contribute here to this discussion.
So my understanding is that the contribution has gone to ICC, but for the upgrade of the bluff, the boat ramp. So we don't know exactly which of the bits of that project we paid for, but essentially it was for the upgrade of that boat ramp. So it has been spent on upgrading a boat ramp down the bluff. It's just that the intention was that it was the boat ramp, and then there was going to be a cleaning area in behind the back and behind where the museum is. That's actually not appropriate for washdown. So, and the boat ramp needed to be upgraded for us to use that. So we contributed to the upgrade of the boat ramp. That's been done. That project's, as far as I'm aware, that project's been done and our investment in that's been spent. But we haven't then been able to use that for the washdown, which was what we wanted. So does that answer?
Is it,
There has
obviously
been an outcome
they
from
must be
that
able to
funding.
show.
There has
they
been a
must-
capital outcome from that funding.
Yeah, I'm just saying, but then we know where the money's been getting spent, like they must have a project.
Yeah, there's a project and there's
The
all
numbers are there in regards, and ICC still aren't, they're not giving us the numbers though.
That's
About the detail on where this money's, because we haven't got the outcome that we were expecting at the original investment, have we? Okay.
John,
This is the main boat ramp for the public to use, or a different ramp?
the main one.
It's not complete. Yeah, there's still quite a bit to be done there in low
I know
tide.
they scaled it down and changed the plans and things, and that's where, yeah. So we
Yeah,
were,
because at low tide, trailers are falling off the back of it. And it's,
Questions?
Yes, I think we want a comprehensive report to come back with a lot of photos of what we were going to do originally, and this thing just seems to have quietly died away. So we need the information to be able to make an appropriate response to what we've heard. So I'm assuming we'll put money into so the boat ramp has been started, but not totally finished from what I'm hearing.
piecemeal, that's for sure.
Right. Initially, we had talked about a haul out facility that would go up behind the museum there somewhere. But yeah, I think staff have got enough direction, but if there's a mobile option that we could actually go to somewhere that's already got the containment bunds and capture things, that could be part of the answer. But I think probably staff have been given enough guidance to come back to us with something.
yeah. Thanks, Nick. I guess the committee's looking for a bit of clarity about exactly what we're doing in that area. So when I think about predator threat Rakiura, the real key point at the start is the airport and the hub is Bluff in the area. We should be thinking the same way where our incursion points, and we seem to be doing this a bit backwards. So I think we need to give some real effort into what we're going to do. And I would ask that we have these discussions with these key stakeholders first and get clarity around that first, as opposed to building something then afterwards approaching people, which seems to be a rather more difficult way of doing things. So the other stakeholders' needs might be a bit different. We may have to incorporate their needs too. Who knows? Should we engage in a wider cost sharing type of solution? So any other questions here?
Can I just make one? I think by the time the check-in, when you come back to us, I'd like to know that we've got the answers to those questions around that funding.
Yeah.
And we need to really reiterate whether we need to do whatever we need to, because it's reasonably a large chunk of money there, and if we're hearing that's not, the outcomes haven't been what we've said.
Okay.
They need to be clear or transparent.
Okay. No, that's very good, Jeremy. So yes, we'll come back to with something there, Nick and Ellie. Very good. Thank you. Rightio. Let's move on.
Move the
Yep.
recommendations.
Thanks very much, Nicole. We've got a second to there. Yep. Thanks, John. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? It's carried. So let's move on to 9.3, biosecurity and biodiversity. This is the annual report. Thanks, Ellie. Want to take us through some points that you want to highlight in this?
Thanks everyone. I do appreciate it. It's a really good report, so I will just try and summarise it on some slides for you. It's got some. So, yeah, just very briefly, it is the report covers the full year, which is the full outputs from the biosecurity and biodiversity team. It's quite a few pages, so we'll just quickly go over some of the highlights so you don't have to read every single line of every single page. So essentially for biodiversity, the project, all of our biodiversity work has pretty much been funded by the Jobs for Nature Action on the Ground project. We're in year 4 of that now, and it's actually been a record year for the amount of work we've managed to be done. So we managed to get 44 environmental enhancement funds finished, which is absolutely fantastic, 80 management plans, and then a smaller number of ecological surveys, and that's because of the changes that we've had with central government with the national policy statement and the Indigenous biodiversity, and whether we were going to do it or not do it, whether we're doing SNAs or not doing SNAs. So the number of ecological surveys is low, but every other bit of that project is going really well, and we're getting a lot of engagement out in the community. The other big bit of the biodiversity programme and the Jobs for Nature work is the Fish Passage project. We remediated 45 fish barriers this year. We've also started getting the preliminary results in from the piece of case study work we were doing. So we've had a PhD student looking at 30 barriers. It is still preliminary results, but essentially what it's showing is that before the remediation happens for climbing species, this is climbing species only, such as redfin bully, the small fish, which is so the orange blobs on there, small fish are below the barrier, and there's not many small fish above the barrier. Once we take the barrier out, we put the ramp in, or we fix it, whatever remediation is needed, afterwards we get a lot more small fish above where that blockage was. So it's opening up a whole heap of habitat for them to potentially breed in and to be protected from other species like trout where it's working. So they do seem to be working for those climbing species. So really good results from that project, and we've got another year to go. It's also been a really big year for engagement. So the biodiversity team have been getting out and about in the community as much as they can and trying to do innovative things that we haven't done before. So we went out to Tuatapere and had a massive bio blitz. We celebrated World Wetlands Day with a great video. We had all of our grant recipients in for an evening so they could learn about what each other was doing and talk to each other, networking, and a whole heap of stuff. So lots and lots of outreach, and we've reached hundreds of people this year. So if we look back on how well we've been doing with those Jobs for Nature projects, particularly the Biodiversity Action on the Ground one, we thought we'd just give you a summary of what we've achieved in 4 years. So we've done enough native trees to cover 16 hectares or 6 blocks of Invercargill. So essentially, if we put all of those trees together, we would have created our own little forest the size of 6 blocks, which is pretty cool. And the amount of fencing that's gone in to protect those remnant areas is same distance between here and Grau. So it would take you an hour to drive that entire fence line if it was down the state highway and you could go at full speed. So it's a huge amount that's happened, and we're really proud. And we think that the Jobs for Nature programme is actually making a really big, meaningful difference out there on the ground. So that's biodiversity at a glance. Biosecurity. So we've broken these down into the different programs. We're on year 5 of the Regional Pest Management Plan. You'll all be familiar with this now, but we've got some species that we want to keep out of the region, which are exclusion species. It has been a really big year of chasing down possible incursions. They've all come back negative, which is absolutely fantastic, and we haven't had any, but we've had a lot of work into trying to find wallaby reports, rook reports, so mice on Rakiura that we spent a long time looking for, as well as some marine ones. So we're putting more and more effort each year into our response planning and readiness, and then also making sure that when we get a report, we really go and have a good look and find out if there was something there and what was going on. So, but headline, no incursions. Then we've got our eradication projects. These are also going really well. So we've got 3 of them that are pretty much at 0. And we are very confident that we will have eradicated these species by 2029. So that's the field horse-type parrot's feather and smilax. We can never be 100% sure because we need to keep looking and keep trying to find them. But from what we know, we're on track. The other species in slightly lighter green colour because we are pretty sure we're on track, but not quite as confident because there's a few more sites and a few more things to deal with. But overall, the eradication project going really, really well. Sites, we're finding sites, we're killing sites, and we're on top of it. The progressive containment is where we start struggling, and we've talked about this at various regional services before. One of the ones I wanted to highlight this year is the Old Man's Beard that we've started to find. Late in this quarter, we went back and checked some of the sites, previously known sites, couldn't find anything. So we started extending the search out further. And as we've gone up the river, up on the Arete, we've found this big patch of Old Man's Beard, which is far bigger than anything we've had in Southland before. It is controllable. We will be able to deal with it, but it's taken a species that we thought we previously only had 200 sites in gardens, and it was 1 or 2 plants. This is big, so this is something we're going to need to put quite a lot of work on in the next few years to bring it back under control. You'll also all be aware that wilding conifers are an ongoing issue, and we're struggling to contain them. The work we put into Darwin's barberry and Cotoneaster through Jobs for Nature on the Te Anau buffer did really great through that project, but we're struggling to maintain it. So we'll be putting things in place for the next few years to try and keep on top of that work. There's a few species that we don't have enough information on either. So heather, Japanese honeysuckle, and ruffles tail. We're not sure we know where all those sites, trying to find them and work out where they are and what the problem is. And Bengal cats is another one where we have a register of Bengal cats, of people that have brought Bengal cats to us to be registered, but we don't know how many others are out there. So we don't really know whether that program's being effective. So if we look at that for where we'll be in 2029, some projects, some of the species, we're going to be pretty good and we'll meet our 2029. Some of them are struggling and on cost a little bit more, and we'll need a lot of effort over the next 5 years. Sustained control. This is where the species that are widespread sit, and the only one I'm really highlighting is the Possum Control Area Programme. We're covering over 400,000 hectares of Southland now and 61 PCAs, which is fantastic. We did only manage to set up 1 new PCA this year because of staff changes. Normally we aim to do 2 a year, but we weren't able to. But the thing that we are beginning to worry about is the fact that some of the PCAs are struggling to retain their targets. So we get them down to 5%. The intention then is that the landowners maintain them at 5%, and there's at least 8 that are struggling and have tipped over that 5%. So we are in the process of doing a full possum control area review to see what we can do to that programme to support landowners better, and to bring all of those PCAs back to the targets where they should be. So that's going to be another focus for the next few years. Dive program, I've just put this up here because this is a new type of reporting we have to do on our how many dives we do, and it actually tells a really cool story of the amount of work that's been done in the dive team. So we've done over 330 scientific dives, which is all of our end area work. It equates to 20 days underwater, so the team has spent a lot of the year underwater, and they've had, and I should probably touch wood here, but 0 incidents or accidents in all of that time out on that programme underwater, which is absolutely amazing. We did have a couple of small incidents out of water on boats and things, but yeah, really proud of the dive team and what they've done this year, and those results speak for how hard they're working. So if we look at where we're at for biosecurity, Regional Pest Management Plan 2019 is 5 years old. We've got 5 more years to complete it. Exclusion, we think we're doing pretty well. Eradication, we're doing pretty well, but both of those we need to do a lot more surveillance and a lot more monitoring. Progressive containment, we are at risk of not meeting those 2029 targets, particularly with Undaria wild and conifers, things like Old Man's Beard popping up. Sustained control, everything other than possums is going okay. So possums is struggling, but all of the plant species are doing just about okay, and the Stewart Island Brachyura is doing okay. So it's a bit of a mixed bag if we look at our report card for halfway through the plan, but we've got 5 years to fix it. That's it for that bubble.
Thanks, Ellie. I've got a couple of questions, but I'll just make some general comments myself. It's a big it's an area with a lot of width, isn't it? And it's hard to get airtime, I know, with the public when you talk biodiversity, biosecurity. It's not something that's tangible, that's on the horizon that you can see. And that's our challenge, really, isn't it? Is to get people really activated and interested in the work that we do, the really important work that we do. So obviously for me, the PCAs are of concern. Do the landowners fully understand their responsibilities in that program of meeting those residuals? Is that something, or is?
It's part of it. I think people that engage in the program know, but there's so many other priorities, and landowners and farmers are dealing with so much at the moment that it's often becomes the lowest priority. We haven't had TB in the region for a while, so it's no longer sort of front of mind that it's something they need to do. Because the PCAs are so successful when they first start, possum numbers drop down, and if you don't see possums, you don't think you've got a problem. And then they start building and building, and you don't think you've got a problem until they get too bad. So there's a bit of a complacency, a bit of a not quite understanding, delay and the like in that. But most landowners are doing a really good job, so there's only a few.
Yeah, just another couple of comments. Is just in your work plan here, you've got one at the bottom. You've been working with ORC and ECAN to model emerging risks and impacts due to climate change. I see that data's been received there. Are we tracking along as things are, the climate's getting warmer, things are growing, more incursions? Is that all marching in that direction?
That's what we're worried about. So when we're doing the pest management plan review for 2029, which we're starting now, we're looking at actually if the climate changes, what could grow, what could get worse. Are we going to have, are things going to shift to different areas? Are we going to get more incursions from the north? I think our climate protects us quite a lot right now, and that might change. So part of that is looking at actually what could the future look like and how do we get in front of it so we stop things before they get worse as the climate changes.
Any other questions here? Jeremy, and then Nicole, and then John.
When looking at the work on the ground and trying to eradicate, is it just a numbers game? People, you need people. Like, I mean, I'm just trying to tease out what's needed. And I'm ask a question: have you got any more, in the long-term plan, to be able to deal with some of these things, or it just didn't go there?
So for eradication, it's that and exclusion, it's that search effort. So it's how much can you put into search for it to find it? Because once we've found things, we're pretty good at getting rid of it. So there's options to use new technology. So as we're getting better drones and AI, so possibly finding things that way, trying to upskill community so that if there's something they tell us, that's kind of where we need to be going. Obviously, we're also trying to upskill some of the contractors so they can do a lot of the search effort for us. And we have, particularly in the marine space, we've now got contractors that carry an ES warrant so they can do some of the surveys for us. And that's gone really well. So we're looking at getting some of the plant contractors to do the same, which will spread our resources further and allow us to cover more ground. So yeah, the more resources obviously better, but the long-term plan is fixed as it is now, and we're working with what we've got.
I suppose it's just looking at the old man's beard scenario where you thought, oh, everything's good, but further up, I don't know what distance.
It was a couple of K, yeah.
Ks, but it seems very close that it hadn't been spotted. I'm just trying to understand how those things get missed. I'm not saying everything's a big province, but
yeah.
From a point, no locals, nobody on the river, we rely on the public to give us information too. Probably a major point too, but yes, I was just trying to understand why.
Southland's just really big.
I know.
And we deal with what we know about, and then we can keep expanding once we got on top of that. We keep expanding. That delimitation is really important. Things like that old man's beard, it will have only taken one seed, and one windy event to jump over us where we were looking, and a few years later we've got what we've got. So.
Okay.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Firstly, a really good report, and I think we should probably put out a press release on that biodiversity action on the ground, because that is a good news story. I guess the follow-up question is, can we maintain the progress we've made? I know we've got the issues with the wildlings as well. And the fish passage, another good news story, but it also emphasises to me the importance of having baseline information. So you're now seeing the smaller galaxies moving through it. So it actually says this is something that works. And I think that's something we don't always emphasise as much as we should. And the PCAs, that is a concern to me. I know you've got this review going on with a number of other councils, and one of my roles is I'm the local government member of the stakeholder group for Osprey, and it's not just here. All around the countryside, people are seeing possums in particular getting away, and I keep maintaining proof of freedom is not going to work unless we can control the vectors. And that Hokanui area, so it's quite alarming. The number of vectors we know are in there with possums, pigs, deer, and it's such a difficult country to actually eradicate a disease, and I've got real concerns there. But it appears that the weakness of the PCA system is the ability for people to say, no, we'll look after ours, and I think investigating a contractor-only model is probably the way forward.
Thanks, Nicol. These really good suggestions. John?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yes, just backing up Nicol's points there, and it is there is always examples of farmers that do an exceptionally good job at, if they know they're in the heart of it, they'll be putting out 3 times the amount of bacon, so there's a lot of contract to get down to. But it does beg the question: is the structure of the PCA, have we got that right? And do we need to look at other options around rating and doing the full scale contractor model to get on top of this? Because these PCAs, we're not inside them, but we've got a boundary on them, and I've heard of some alarming numbers on those farms, like people seeing 250 animals in an hour while they're rabbit shooting. So there's some horrendous numbers of eating lines of bait and trap and off tubes, and it's the scale out there is quite scary. So yeah, it is a very large matter of urgency around this.
Very good, Morris.
Well, to follow up there, Mr. Chairman, what is the timeframe for this review of the PCA program, so that we can, get this, if John and Nicol and I were sort of supported too, the contract that managed to control system that I think they've supported in the past as well. So we really need to know when this is going to be happening, and soon.
So we're pulling together the options at the moment. We've got quite a lot of information on them and the different options. We are hoping to get it through in this year's annual plan review, because consultation will be required. We'll have to work with landowners and coast it, but council's got a lot of other priorities as well. So if we don't hit this annual plan, it might be one of the future ones. But that's what we're hoping to get everything ready so that it can be considered by council as part of the next annual plan review as to whether it's a priority or not to go.
Well, can we support that and say, yes, that's really important? Yes. Say there's lots of other things to do, but this is really, really good.
There's quite a lot of high interest in this committee, and I'd say with the wider council too. So is it something you could bring back to us in a workshop to discuss some of those options? Would be a good idea, Jeremy.
I think they would be able to answer this in regards to, it wasn't actually a problem with money, it was actually getting the people and the contractors. It's pretty hard business. Like, it's a pretty full-on job. It's actually getting people into those, training people. Is that right? Like, I remember years ago, you were looking for contractors as such. Is that still an answer? Still a problem? That's what I was saying. We can throw money at it, but if there's not actual personnel to do the work.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. Look, there will be contractors out there sitting waiting if we went to a contractor model. So contractors under the contractor model won't be a problem to us. The reason they're not really there at the moment is having to engage with farmers one-on-one and invoice farmers one-on-one. That's really the biggest issue. No offence, I'm sitting in front of farmers, but farmers have a lot on their plate, as you've heard, and paying bills sometimes isn't a priority. And these contractors, they really need a constant revenue to make a living. So we have had issues with some farmers not even paying our contractors or the PCA contractors. So that's not really tolerable either. So, but if we went to a contractor model, there would be contractors out there waiting to do the work. We have tried to bring people in and make contractors, but again, as you indicate, it's just a tough market to get set up and capital wise.
Yeah, answer the question.
Yeah, but about I guess where the commodities around possums are getting to now, contractors there's talk out there that people actually aren't having to charge farmers for the control because of the returns they're making. But I'm just wondering how that'll play out if you know, you got that style of contractor going out, and then we're looking at trying to go down the poisoning route. So there'll be some interesting the way it's all playing out, the way the pet food and the possum pricing further at the moment is sort of shifting the winds quite a bit in how people are approaching it.
Yeah, we've had that issue for probably a couple of decades where once you put a price on something, it's very hard to get them down to the level that's required. And you've got to be careful saying that private operators that are out there for pet food and skins and fur are doing control. It's not control in our vision. It's a form of pest management, but it's not getting down to the level that this RPMP requires.
So how do we we've got some levers we can pull to get around that? I could just see that moving quicker than what we can within the space at the moment. That's all.
I mean, monitoring is one way we're trying to do that, but there's only so much resource that we can spend on monitoring as well, because the monitoring gives us the data and the baseline to say how many possums you have or haven't, and gives us an opportunity to do compliance and education. But again, it's getting that understanding of what that level is, because as Ali indicated, possums aren't like a yellow weed that you see every day. So farmers don't appreciate exactly what they've got until it is too late. So yeah, but for people that are doing it for commercial reasons, they are there to make a dollar. So they want a high population. If it's not high, they'll move on somewhere else.
That's what's raising the issue.
Yeah. So we have to make our contracts viable. They have to be contracts that people want and can make a good business from, so that is the better option rather than trying to do other types of business.
Jeremy.
I was just going to say that in the next year, we're obviously looking, Capital Valley, we're sort of setting the direction of rating. We'll move to a Capital Valley, but maybe there might be a few differentials in there too. What you're indicating, that'd probably be a lot easier if there was a cost structure that we rate it, and then we employ the contractors to do what we want them to do. And they get paid. They're not worrying about their income flow. That may be something we're obviously going to be looking at in the next 12 months, just to finalise where the rating system's going to head up. That may have to bring that up. Be an opportunity to have a look at it. That's what I'm saying, and understand what's needed.
Thanks, Jeremy. I think the committee's very clear. A lot of high interest in here on the options that you could bring to us. So please keep that in mind. I'd like to see that. Morris.
Thank you. Moving on from possums to wilding pines, I see that on page 42, we talk about a strategy that hasn't been developed yet. And I wonder where, once again, when this will be done so that we can have a coordinated way of dealing with the spreading of these pines, at least in Murihiku.
So we have started drafting bits of the strategy, but we're also, as part of looking at where we need to be and the resources that the biosecurity team needs, we're looking at changing the resourcing structure a little bit within the team. So we've got a pest pump person dedicated to wildings, is our intention. And if we can get that in place and get somebody focused on this, then we can really start progressing these wilding things. Because at the moment, myself and Jolie are trying to do it on top of everything else. So these are some big issues, and we want to try and get some real dedicated time in doing it properly. So I'd like to say by the end of the year, but we'll see how we go.
Good. Just regarding the wilding pines and that picture that's in there of them all along the roadside, and you do see that in the water tables. Driving up to Coronet Peak the other day for all the Douglas fir seedlings in the water tables, and then I look and there's all the new plantings with the weed tree protectors everywhere. So people putting huge amount of effort into trying to establish new plantings, while you've got that incursion right in front of your face all the way up that road. So that's a bit of a mind shift that people it's not just about planning, it's about protecting what's already there. So that's a bit difficult. I'd just like to support what Nicole said before about some sort of maybe press release coming out of this work. You said that we're at the halfway point in this plan. It might be a good time to do a wee bit of a stock take with the general public and say these are the things we're doing well at, but these are the things that we need more help, or we're trying to find better ways of doing anyway, and talk about the challenges that we have. That could be a good suggestion, I think.
Take that on board.
Thanks. No further questions. We might get someone to move us. And I was sort of thinking, so these were both 9.3 and 9.4 that you presented.
Oh, I haven't done 9.4 yet.
Okay.
Quickly, do you want to do them both at once? I can quickly run through.
Have to move
I
on.
think that's a good idea. Yeah, if we could do, please. Yeah.
So just very, very quickly, so the operational plan. So part of the Biosecurity Act requires us to have an operational plan. So if we have got pest management plans and pathways plans, then we have to have an operational plan. The last operational plan went from 2019 to 2024, which means that we now need to have a new plan. So we have the strategy, we've got the 2 regulatory documents, and then the plan is a high-level plan about what we're going to do for 5 years, and then we also have a structure of smart targets that sits under that we manage through a new program called Tamahi, which has normally got about 150 targets per year. So this is just to look at the operations plan and tell you at a high level what we're going to be doing for the next 5 years. So it's that document. It used to be embedded in the strategy, but we've pulled it out so you can see better. So essentially, we are going to keep doing everything we've been doing for the last 5 years. We are going to include things that we've already talked about this morning, like emerging threat assessments. So future planning for next year. We're going to start looking at technology. So there's a picture of our new marine vessel portal up on the board, which is going to have a record of all of the boats we survey and all of where they've come from, and if they've been checked by other councils and all other sorts of things. So sharing data in the marine space with all of our partnerships. So we're looking at technology like that, looking at ways to make our life easier. We're going to keep doing enforcement. We're going to keep doing all of our responses and partnerships and policies and things like that. The other difference that we've done in the plan this year is we had some feedback that the way we structured our plan in terms of exclusion eradication, progressive containment wasn't that easy for anyone else to understand other than those of us that live and breathe it every day. So rather we should clump it into animals, plants, marine and freshwater, because that's a bit more meaningful for everybody else. So we've done that. And we've also set some quite high level milestones of where the things that we think we need to do to hit those 2029 targets. I've just put a summary of them up there now that's more embedded in the actual document, but it's things like that possum control area review that we've talked about, a Racura pathways plan for predatory Racura, so that we actually know where the risk is to Racura and how we're going to deal with it. We don't really have a freshwater program. So this year we're going to start looking at what should our freshwater biosecurity program be and how do we do that alongside everybody else. We've got some marine milestones in there, and so essentially it's taking you through what we're going to do for the next 5 years to hopefully hit our 2029 targets and to be ready for RPMP 2029 and the next 10 years going forward. That's it.
Very good. Any questions?
Well, I know this report's in the other committee we've got on.
Yes, apologies, that was a mistake. It was only supposed to be in this committee.
Oh, very good. Okay. I did have a couple of things. What's that? So in terms of the review of this, that'll be a separate process. You're just telling us about it now, but we'll need to go through it sort of line by line and have a public consultation or input process.
There's no need for a public consultation over this because it's just the operations plan, and essentially it's just a rollover. So we weren't intending to do that, but if it's something that you would like us to bring back to workshop and go over line by line.
No, I don't really want to add to your workload. I know it's already.
Appreciate that. I'm going to make sure you've got the right input as well, Liz.
Yeah. I noticed on page 70 about Bonamia, about the long-term management of it. And I just wondered whether that's realistic. Well, to be in there at all, really, you know, it's something that occurs in the ocean and you really have no control over it.
We don't have any control over it, but we have control over some of the activities and things that might spread it or move it. And it goes back to that pathways approach. So I think it's something that's really valuable for us to keep being involved in. I think it does sit more comfortably with MPI for the long term. But I think it's something that we should at least be aware of, and it will have a massive impact on our fisheries, or the oyster fisheries, if it does get out. So, yeah, but we might not be able to do much.
Okay, thanks.
Two other questions, team? Well, I do really, thanks for that. I do really think it's a great opportunity halfway through this 10-year period is to do a bit of a stock take for the public. Where we've come to and where we've got to go to achieve these goals. So I think it's a great opportunity if we can highlight that. Okay, someone would like to move. I'm going to attempt Eric Roy move two large items at once.
So I tried to move the first one. I'm happy to move
Thank you.
3 and 4. Yeah,
That's John. Good. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? And those two items are carried. Thank you very much, and thank you, Ali. So we're doing pretty good with time. So we're at 9.5. So this is the catchment integration annual report. Fiona.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just take a minute to load up a little presentation, hopefully. Can I pull this through? Please. I wonder if you want to move on to the next item while I just try and get this set up, Mr. Chairman.
Sure thing.
Doesn't seem to be working quite as I had immediately hoped and dreamed.
Well, on that suggestion, if we could move to item 9.6, Randall. If you were there, Randall. Not really having a cuppa. Oh no, there he goes. We caught you on the hop. Sorry about that. We just had a few technical difficulties, so we're just moving here to 9.6. We're just adaptable.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just told Ella she had 5 or 10 minutes before she needed to be there in person, so I'll just message her to come back. I'll take the report as read. Happy to answer any questions at the end, but I have asked Ella to talk about the flow and the gravel working group update specifically. Hopefully she comes back into the room and I'll talk about the sites of concern that we've got in the report. So the sites of concern are specific areas that we're actively monitoring with our work supervisors, particularly in the front of any forecast rainfall. The Aparima project, as you see on page 107, is completed, and we're just progressing through the retrospective consent for the river diversion. With the Ariti project, which is on page 108, we've undertaken the works that was to fix the willow island that was formed during an earlier flood event, and that was the issue that was raised to us by the Jet Boating Association that we're planning the marathon run later this year, I believe. The erosion at Waimumu is particularly concerning just because of the length of it and limited options to address that at the moment. So we are considering some alternative alignment options, which sort of feeds into the slow the flow approach. But we need the landowner support to change the alignment of that stop bank, and that's potentially cheaper to undertake some rock work, but we're just going through that process with the landowner at the moment. The Wyndham issue is an interesting one. It is on domain and road reserve, so it doesn't feed into the targeted rate system, but the community board and Southland District Council are wanting to see the edge protection works reinstated, so we're sort of discussing with them what funding options might be, but it's not currently threatening our structural stop bank, so we wouldn't be wanting to access the maintenance budget for that. Quite happy to report that the climate resilience stop banks works are all complete, but some remedial works at Wyndham, which was the car park, and some riverside fencing, which will get underway once the ground conditions allow that. So both Wyndham, Gore, and Waihopai are completed. And I have a message from Ella that she is there in person, so I'll ask her to come up and we will talk about Mataura Slow the Flow project and the gravel working group specifically.
Thanks, Ella. G'day.
Morning, councillors.
Yeah,
How are you?
yeah, good.
Good. Great to be here. Thank you for having us and having me along. So I'm here, I guess, to give an update on both the Mirihiku Slow the Flow project and happy to have a quick chat about the gravel update. So Mirihiku Slow the Flow Upper Matoda pilot is going really well. We are at the 1 year stage of a 2-year project. We're tracking really well against each of the objectives that are outlined in the report. And I guess the key component that's really, I guess, making this project come together is the ability to draw on multiple other pieces of work that are already underway. So there are several catchment groups who've been talking about Slow the Flow. There are several other science projects that have been looking at nature-based solutions, but often for other reasons. So what we're doing through the project is pulling those together, actually having some really good discussions where there's multiple benefits in each way, and then looking at how we can specifically focus in on the flood mitigation aspect required for the Slow the Flow outcomes. It's a pilot. It is about understanding where we're at, what we can achieve, what else we might need in order to learn to take that at the sort of to other catchments and across the entire region.
Has there been any discussions around any significant engineering projects around within Slow the Flow?
So the funding itself is Ministry for the Environment funding, and it is only for the project management and science investigations. The physical aspects aren't funded, but this has become there were 11 submissions that specifically mentioned through the LTP process that mentioned Slow the Flow project. It's language that people understand, and so we can see this as a key work stream over and beyond the MFE funding. There has been some conversations about funding particular aspects of this, but nothing's concrete as yet. And in terms of engineering projects, so one of the so the 4 nature-based solutions that are currently being proposed are the detention bunds, wetlands, afforestation, including tussock land, and room for the river. So all of those may have some component of engineering requirements, but as I said, it's about investigating what is the best engineering design to achieve slow the flow outcomes, and then what are the pros and cons for putting those in.
So essentially, the project on Tara is looking at creating a safer column of water going down through those areas of population. You could say that's in my own mind when I think about that. It's around community safety too.
Yep, it is. It's taking the site-specific aspect of river engineering to a catchment-wide, identifying where the risks are, and what the possible solutions are across the entire catchment, both on land and nearer to the river. Yeah.
John, you got a question?
Thanks. It's a great report, and there's a lot happening in this space. I guess what alignment do we have with re-mentioning the tower? That's another massive project that's happening at the moment. Where are we sort of aligning with that?
So good alignment. I've had 3 meetings with Kane from Fonterra, and he's on the board. And I'm presenting to the hui that's coming up next month. They are interested in all of the nature-based solutions that we've proposed, but they're particularly interested in some of the room for the river concepts, which were they have discussed with catchment groups and things around the Upper Matoda. So good alignment at this stage. We haven't got anything written, but that's the next step.
Very good. Who do we have next? You, Jeremy. Jeremy.
Since being in my neighbourhood as such and catchment, I know very little about it, apart from what you're telling us here. And from a governance point of view and funding and things looking in the future, I don't know whether we're not being involved. Apart from this discussion, and at times I'm wondering. I said I'd like to know a lot more, but is it possible that we can actually have a full-on session on it? Because it's only drips and drabs we get, and and as I say in the long-term plan, it's talked about. So it's actually I know bugger all about it, to be honest. And it's obviously, and it's reasonably important because we're trying to work out flood banks and funding and things like that. We're sitting around the table working out some of these huge capital costs in the future, and we know there's projects going on that we actually don't seem to have any involvement from a governance. Yeah, so I'm just trying to put that out there because I'm always very interested in it, but this is the only time we hear about it. So is that just a suggestion for the future? That we can sit in or even just.
Could you fit something in along those lines?
I don't know why we're not involved, but it's all good.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we were acutely aware that the councillors have asked for a workshop on this. And it's a matter of trying to get a date that fits in that works everyone at the moment. So we do have one planned. We just haven't got it locked in for a date for you. But yes, we are aware that Councillor Rodway specifically asked for that at the last meeting as well.
Thank you. It's on the way. Very good.
Through the chair, Councillor McDonald, the feedback that we got, we did around with stakeholders as well, was that people were ready to have more discussions about it. And so there will be more opportunities also for some of the key catchment groups who are involved and other stakeholders in a field trip, hopefully in the next couple of months, to bring people together as well. So certainly we need to make sure that you have the opportunity for that workshop before we have the field trip.
I think it's a really good idea. It's going to draw a lot of people in, isn't it, these discussions. Nicole, you go.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I see the gravel working group met back in June, and I know it's only part of the solution with Slide the Flow, but the Hawke's Bay report certainly picked up on that too. I know you'll still be waiting for the bathymetric survey results to show where the build-ups are, but we've got a lot of public interest in this, so it would be good to be able to, I guess, have the workshop and be able to talk to the wider community. The tower is going to be the first cab off the rank for a whole lot of these things, but the other thing I'm sure we'll look at in Slow the Flow, and it's in that Hawke's Bay recommendations, is where you can spill water and when you're getting an event that yes, that could have been 1 in 1,000 years, but we need to have the ability to have options that are above the normal flood bank type design. So it'd be good that I know back in 2019, all parties did sign up to basically a guide, but 5 years on, we still quite haven't got there. So I'm looking forward with some enthusiasm to see some progress in this area. And I think now that it's the whole slow the flow concept, giving the river room to move, hopefully is going to actually help parties move on this. So it's not just about gravel; it's about the whole management of the river.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I just 100% enthusiastically endorse Councillor Orrell's comments there. A big part of the historic work that was undertaken included the flood conveyance. So it's not just stop banks that we need to focus on, it's improving the hydraulic efficiency of the flood conveyance as well. And I was talking to Colin Young about this a couple of weeks ago, and he said part of the condition for getting government funding back in the 80s was that they did both things. So they addressed the willow and gravel issues at the same time as building stop banks. So it's a multifaceted approach that we need, and the storage solutions in the upper catchment are going to play a huge part in that as well.
John.
Just reading through this, and I just see the decommissioning of the Stead Street, the old pumps. This project sort of run a bit longer than anticipated. I'm just wondering if we need the urgency to decommission something without just making sure we get it maybe 12 months or something under a belt, just to make sure everything's kosher. I'm just sort of looking at this. It's a reasonably short time frame for the decommissioning compared to the whole process that we've been through. Just risk management, I guess, what I'm thinking about.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. Through you, Mr. Chair. We have recommended that the decommissioning of the existing pump station isn't undertaken for quite some time. Preferably, as I guess everyone's well aware, that the January, February, March timeframe is often our highest risk period for large floods. But it is a consent condition that they do have to be decommissioned at some stage. But we're proposing that it's not until early next year.
Yeah, that's a good common sense approach, I think. Yeah, Morris, you had a question.
Oh, thank you. Yes, it was really I was Randall sort of part answer to my original question was about quantifying the ability to store floodwaters in application areas to reduce the peak when it gets to the Tower and Gore, and that's all hard, but I suppose doing the maths and working it out and seeing how much of an area you need and that kind of thing.
Yes, so through the chair, the Room for the River concept covers a lot of that. We have some preliminary, I guess, modelling tools that we can use to help with that. The Environment Southland has a hydrological tool. We have flood risk models for the Upper Matoda that we can also draw on. So between those two things, the aim for the Slow the Flow project is that it does actually use the landscape. It isn't just how much water can we hold back, but actually how much can we in this particular place. And so it will give us an opportunity to look specifically. We've engaged Ian Fuller, Professor Ian Fuller, who's now also part-time with Tonkin Taylor, to help us with that. So it's undertaking a natural character index and then sort of taking it wider to include the area around it to see where that water could be stored immediate to the river and detention bunds up in the upper catchment in the hill country.
Thank you, and thank you, Ella. And the other question related to the Titara lock tide gates, that the consent is being applied for to be renewed so that we can continue to drain that area. I've talked about this before as well, and I know that it's it's well down the track and all of that, but it does seem to be a bit in conflict with some other things we're trying to achieve, such as building wetlands to enhance biodiversity, maintaining that area there in a drained situation, then the potential for native fish habitat is not really being realised. And it's probably too late to make a change now, but I would hope that at some stage in the future we start to think about these things a bit more holistically and not just renew the old stuff that we're doing all the time. It's not really a question, but more of a comment. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I just add to the previous question by Councillor Rodway? We have engaged NIWA to undertake a hydrology review of the Matera catchment. So that will feed into our piece of work that we want to investigate the maximum probable event, which will help us with the capacity and storage issues for the future solutions. And that work with NIWA we're hoping that's complete in the next week or two on that, and then we'll be using that to assist us with the solutions for Gore and Matera stop banks. But a big part of that, as you know, we've talked about earlier as council, is that we don't build new flood bank assets in areas that aren't currently protected, because that will be in conflict with those storage areas needs that we're going to have.
Thank you.
Yeah, I guess just to comment on Morris's point about the floodgates, I guess, yeah, absolutely support doing the right thing, leaning on our lands and showing the pathway forward, but just be very mindful that we do boundary private land, and we're going to be really careful we don't impede on people's ability to operate their businesses as well. So yeah, it's a bit of a juggling act down there.
Most of it's our land, but some of it is.
So not most of it. Most of it, but there is still some. Yeah.
The gravel working group, Ella, do you think, you know, gravel is an extremely high in terms of public interest in the region, isn't it? Do you think you're getting to a point that the group itself, and I'm not talking about the council, but the group itself could make some sort of communication to the public of progress and the things you're planning to do? Because I'm taking a lot of questions still about it, and will continue to do that. Is that a possibility from the people that are actually in there collaborating together to make some sort of unified comment on the direction of the work? Is that something that could happen?
So at the previous meeting, there was an agreement that the statement that we had around the process was agreed, and that was what formed the base of the recent councillor update, as well as there was some communication that has gone out through Southland District Council's newsletter to all community boards. Mm-hmm. So they have been updated about the work that has been underway, including that we're developing a case study with Southland District Council and their roading manager, Hartley, here on the Tom McGulloch Bridge. So that has been included in one of 3 case studies that we are taking to our Southland Technical Advisory Group to help better understand what's the information that we need to have, so that all parties working can better understand what the possible impacts are. So the discussion is more transparent and free and frank. So in terms of ongoing communication, yes, that is something that we definitely need to do. These case studies will be really helpful because it will be something that we can, I guess, formulate around. Now it's really being processed. What's the process we're working through? What's the problem definition? So we will at the next meeting formulate another piece of communication on that.
I just think it's a really positive way to figure out big problems of collaborating and bringing people together, and that should be highlighted. So that's just a view. So thanks, Al. I just want one last question. Well, I've got a question for Randall regards Gallagher Road. Give us the update on that. Are we working there, or is it imminent?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the question, and just want to add to what Ella said to the previous question. The other piece of work that we have underway with Ian Fuller's assistance is to establish a gravel budget for the Matera catchment. and we'll need that for the case studies and any future consents that we apply for that area. In regards to Gallagher Road, the landowner and contractors, we've got a site inspection, pre-works site inspection underway today. As it's now August, before we can commence it, we need to undertake a nesting birds assessment, but we're hoping to have that work commencing very shortly.
Okay, thanks, Randall. Let us know when that does start. Look, if that's everything, I think we'll just, if someone can move this report, thanks. Marsh, you got something else to say?
I'd like just to add that when you read through this report, there's a prodigious amount of work going on to look after our rohi, and that's very good. And I'm very pleased to see that on the Parawa stream, they're still rescuing the trout they dig out when they clean that stream out. So that's it's not all bad. It's all a lot of good stuff there.
Yeah, and I think you're right, Morris. There's certainly been a lot of interest that's been turned towards the catchments in the region, hasn't there? So, look, have we got a seconder?
Happy second.
All those in favour?
Aye.
Yes, that's carried. Right, thank you very much. Right, we're going to go backwards, just one hop backwards to 9.5.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks to Randall and Ella for stepping in there when the technical abilities were not quite up to scratch. So listen, I offer up the Catchment Integration Annual Report. Obviously you had a chance to review the report. I've just got a few slides, as always, to take you through some of the highlights of the work that we've done over the last 12 months with our community. So if I may just crack on with that. So just again, I guess a reminder in terms of the real focus of our division in catchment integration is engage, educate and empower. So we are constantly working to make sure that we have that connection happening between council and council activities in our community. We have a real focus on advice and information, and what's important is that we ensure that advice and information is with action in mind, and we obviously get involved in some action as well. It is our role to support some of the regulatory responsibilities, particularly around water, biodiversity, contaminated land and hazardous substances. And we are, as we go about our business, looking to improve environmental practices and have people taking action. So it is about education, it is about sharing information, but we want that to generate material action on the ground across a range of places in the community. Interestingly, I looked back on our slideshow from last year, and here was what was planned actually for last year. So it's a very broad-ranging, and obviously this is documented in the report, but quite a broad-ranging set of activities. A lot that the team has done. There's some things in there where we perhaps haven't had quite the same amount of connection or work done that we should have. For various reasons, but by and large we have made progress on all of the black words up there, which is really exciting, and I just really acknowledge the work of the team and of the community in some of this that we've done. Celebrating success, something that perhaps doesn't happen as often as it should do. But just to work through some of the things, and I'll talk about these in one or two of these in a bit more detail coming up. But Māori perspectives through our MPI Hill Country funded program, we have done some work with Te Marama around understanding a Te Māori worldview around land and land management. That's really a first conversation, but I'm really excited to see that progressing. We've supported action, and obviously I've mentioned the planting that we've done through the Southern Riparian program, but also the work that we've done with Randall's team around replanting some of the stock banks in the appropriate places. There are, without shadow of a doubt, complex issues, and again, we have a role in terms of helping people understand the direction of travel, and that has been quite challenging this year. We are looking to empower landowners to take action, and we also, and I know this came up sort of previously, we hold a lot of information and knowledge in this organisation, and helping our community understand that, for example, the state of our catchments and water quality, ecosystem health is a really important role that we play a part in. Just quickly, some statistics. So we have, through our Southland Riparian program and through the work we've done on the stop banks, planted these 7,500 native plants. I'll talk a little bit more about the Hill Country projects. The ecological assessments have happened as part of our support for farmers who are going through NZ FAT Plus, so the farm planning, and of which there's still a number that are, in spite of some confusion out in our community, there are many still progressing in that space. We have done requests, we've followed up and worked with new teachers in the EnviroSchool space. We're quite active in forestry. We work pretty closely with compliance in that space to try and help support the right practices, the implementation of the NES for commercial forestry. Again, we don't have as many requests for the SLUS information, so that's a contaminated land database that we manage. Not as many these days since we've made that available via our Beacon site, but still there are requests that come through. We have catchment plans we've been working on in Waihopai and Waikawa, and some really neat information panels out at the Waihopai planting site. So just encourage councillors to head to the end of Racecourse Road, hang a right and take a walk up the stop banks there and have a look at what's been happening. We've also had some planting now underway down in Kingswell, and that's again in conjunction with catchment operations. Councillors will know that we spend a reasonable amount of time supporting catchment groups. We work really closely with Richard and Rachel and the team at Thriving Southland. Our team are out there tonight at Waikawa with Tessa and the Waikawa catchment group. Just two examples I put up there. One is the Waikaka group, actually, acknowledged Councillor McPhail is probably aware of this work, but the group were really interested in understanding the health of the Waikaka stream sort of from top to bottom, and so we did a number of site visits and some reporting around actually using rapid habitat assessment and SHMAC kit techniques as more of a citizen science approach, combined with some of the work that we have from our monitoring team in-house to help people understand how water quality changes and ecosystem health in particular. In the Tataroa, we're working alongside that group, and they're involved with working and looking at their landscape and landscape risk. And I guess there's an important connection that you need to make. It's good to understand the state of the water, the state of the land, the way in which the land reacts to different farming systems, but then it's actually around the actions that need to happen. And so that's where we're working with the catchment group there to go, okay, so knowing what we know about the land and the risks in that landscape, what are the types of actions that are particularly important? And there are absolutely direct linkages here to your previous conversations actually. One, in terms of, what are the features that might slow the water down, slow the sediment loss, slow the nutrient loss off these properties in the catchment. And then also before that, where is the opportunity to either restore or regenerate biodiversity areas in these properties to help with that overall goal. So it's again that integration kind of aspect. This has been something I'm particularly proud of, and really acknowledge Keith Finlayson and Jodie Crane in terms of helping to deliver this work, and acknowledge the farmers in the Arawia catchment who've taken part in this program. So through funding from MPI and MPI in terms of the funding, we've developed up a strategy that basically, again, synthesises the knowledge that we have around sediment loss, not just in the hill country, looked at how we might implement that on the land. We've done some forestry compliance training through this funding, and that was our Te Māori Connection Day. There's YouTube clips and information booklets around practices to mitigate sediment loss. Met with a catchment group up in Arawia, and as I say, there's a photograph there of out on site doing some pole planting. So there's lots more in this space, we think, to come, but just really proud of the work that's happened over the last 12 months in that project. Obviously, we saw happily the landing of the Southland Water and Land Plan, and it was made operative in May this year. So there's plenty of requests for information and clarity coming through, and so work we're doing there by either at events or one-on-one with farmer follow-up in terms of supporting catchment groups or professionals to understand some of the components of the plan. And it's helpful that in terms of, so we provided some input into the cultivation, into a series of fact sheets actually, which outline some of the newer principles or practices that are in, the newer rules that are in the plan. And we'll continue to do that. We know with intensive winter grazing, we've got an important cultivation period coming up. So there are conversations already at hand, both internally but also externally with groups to determine how we can help farmers and rural professionals understand what's required. We took a waste focus for 2023-2024. So our regional hui at Hedgehope last year really focused, on waste and collaboration with ICC and with Waste Free Wanda. I've said that wrong, haven't I? Funded by ICC. So we're continuing with WasteNet in terms of collaboration, and also in a biodiversity space, we supported the BioBlitz that our wonderful bio team ran out into Otapere last year. So, I mean, that continues to be an incredibly busy space, and I think it's one of those, how long is a piece of string? There is high demand for our services and from schools to be supported. Today, we are out on Matoda with Southland Boys High School and their geography classes, interestingly, of which my son is a participant, are learning about the health of the water in the Matoda. They're visiting the Totoro site, and they're having our team, but also Hokanui visiting as well to help provide a Te Amaro perspective on the health of the water. So again, we have to, we again acknowledge the work that goes on in that space by our small team, and we work as a whole division to try and support the delivery of that, because we see the value not only in the children understanding, but actually the broader communities for those children. Farm planning has been a busy year. It's been a year of two halves, councillors, I think, in the space. But if I just look at some of the delivery from the team solely, we have worked very closely with farmers, with rural professionals, and with the processors in the space. We continue with on-farm support to assess landscape risks and identify mitigations. We've undertaken ecological assessments. A lot of questions coming in about the catchment context. People want to know more about that and where to find it and what it means and how they translate it onto their farms. We've been doing some gap analysis with industry around farm plan requirements, particularly those that are housed within Appendix N of the plan. Ongoing industry and group support, and there are those questions around how we apply, or how farmers and rural professionals apply those Appendix N requirements. So really that's just a small snapshot, but really that's a space that we have delivered farm plans as a whole program before, and it's something that we know and understand quite well and have good infrastructure within the organisation to support with. And it's I guess another one, the other aspect of this is it's one where we have to work across the organisation, because we have information that helps farmers make decisions and understand how to prepare, how to identify actions from other divisions within the organisation as well. I just popped up there the pollution prevention. This is one where we know that we want to invest some more time. It's a program that we haven't really actively kind of pursued for a number of years, but we think it's really important, and we've done some work around what sort of a more comprehensive pollution prevention program would look like. We've obviously got a range of kind of, if you like, environments here, from rural environments, so outdoor burning, disposing of stock, industrial areas, managing of spills, and urban areas in terms of stormwater management. So a big area, a real opportunity area, and an important area in terms of engagement with our community. And I think one of the things we need to look at is how we can engage with other agencies to be able to kind of co-deliver the outcomes of this type of work, and other companies. I've just popped this up. I don't think there's any surprises here, and it's something that councillors, I imagine, will be relatively familiar with, but we continue to, in our land sustainability, with our land sustainability officers, to really focus particularly on ensuring we have good technical understanding of a range of topics, so that we can actually be providing advice on farm to farmers around taking action and how you actually go about doing these things, the practical aspects of it. So That is an ongoing piece of work. I've just very quickly put this up and because it came in a couple of weeks ago, one of my staff members had been out on farm talking with a farmer, and I just thought this might be interesting for councillors to look at. So the bullet points here are the range of questions that one particular individual had. Excuse me. And I mean, quite wide ranging. I think it indicates that although we go out there and we talk about predominantly land management from perhaps an ecosystem health point of view, we are still a face of council, and we often get asked a whole lot of questions around a range of things. What we do is come back into the organisation and seek out that knowledge from other divisions as appropriate. But nonetheless, I think it's indicative of what is on people's minds. And as I say, for many of the councillors around the table, this won't be new information, but as I say, that's literally the questions that came from one particular individual. So, you know, I think this is useful insight when we're thinking about how we develop and promote sort of our knowledge and information and how we work in our community. And as always, I love to end with a good photograph. And this is the work that we've done. This is our Home Creek site where we've been working actively around with the community, with school groups, promoting riparian planting. And actually it's been a really nice internal project as well, because catchment operations sort of have done the initial work to make the site more amenable to planting. We know that there are areas of value here for Te Marama, for the Runanga, and we know that this is an important kind of place in terms of water quality. So yeah, I'll just leave you there, and I welcome any questions.
Thanks, Fiona. Once again, comprehensive and a lot of stuff going in, just like all the other previous items. But we've got Jeremy's.
Catchment context for the rest of the province.
Yes.
When is that?
Yeah, so I'm receiving, well, I wouldn't say I've received hundreds, but I have got kind of a good couple of handfuls of people asking where the catchment context is for Matoda and for Waitona. So I'm actively having that conversation at the moment. I don't have a date for you yet, sorry, through Mr. Chairman. I don't have a date yet, Councillor, but we will follow that up because people are really interested to know. Yeah, and there are people preparing farm plans like at the moment. Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Again, a very good report, and I guess there's overlaps with the comments we made with the last one about putting out a press release on the positive things that are happening. I mean, we found during the LTP process the number of people who genuinely didn't know what we were doing. And so I think actually getting out some of those stats about what your team have been doing with the plantings, etc., very good, and it ties in with the conversation we had earlier. Then we got 21 catchment groups on the Mataura. I was right.
Yes,
blown away that
quite some number.
More than half than there are on one.
Yeah,
it's a pretty good catchment.
And there's other things. So, for example, just recently the Edendale aquifer groups formed, for example. So that but we've got the Tarawa, and that's separated from the lower Matodas, for example. So that's where you've found over this couple of years things have kind of evolved and refined. Yeah.
And the poplar planting, I've got a few areas that I wouldn't mind doing something with. Is that going to be an ongoing project? And we've got stocks coming in each year of poles?
So great question. So sorry, through you, Mr. Chairman. We are now having concluded the first phase, if you like, the year of work that we committed to around that, and we have an implementation plan that has been put together. We are looking at actually how we can continue that program, because I think some of these issues, whilst not at a scale of perhaps say the Horizons region or the Hawke's Bay, nonetheless we still have erosion issues where this is appropriate and where action could be taken. And it's a little bit of, I think my staff have found it's a wee bit of back to the future. You know, I think we've done a lot of this work historically in the past very actively. And so there's some tools and techniques and knowledge which we're sort of lifting back up again. So watch this space through, Mr. Chairman, is what I would say, absolutely.
I'm conscious of time, we're getting close to our 2-hour thing, but that I'm just looking forward. I quite like on page 97 this collaborative work with the SIT around microplastics. I think that's quite good because that's going to be a high profile emerging issue. If it's not already with the community, they're going to be wanting to know more. So it's good that we're ahead of that. And I just want to make some comment on page 99, and we go down to 12 and 13 around integrated catchment model. We talk about that and rural planning. We need to be discussing these concepts with the community now, because we use these words in here, but we don't quite, people outside of this building don't quite know what that means. I sort of describe them loosely as self-determination in the catchment. And you're seeing that there with those two catchment groups, the Waikawa and Waihopai, moving ahead with their own management plans. So in a lot of ways, we're seeing community move ahead of the regulators on stuff they can see. So that gives me a lot of confidence when the community's moving forward on something, they see it too quite clearly. So maybe we should find some ways of talking about that with the public right now. I think it's really important. So that's just some things for the future. We've got another Morris question.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, that's a very good point you make. And my question really was, how much, Fiona, this is all wonderful work, how much do you think that the overall, that everybody else is not actually involved in this, but that the landowning community generally is moving towards a state where they see the land as something that supports them, and that it's not just something that they can manage, it's something that they can really appreciate for its ecosystem services and provide for its own value as well. What you said, Mr. Chairman, about the community groups being a bit ahead of in some cases is a sign that is happening. Do you think that we're getting to a stage where most of the people will see that they really need to do this stuff for their own good, and good of the community and good of
Interesting and quite a significant question. So through you, Mr. Chairman, I'm just corralling my ideas right now. I think that there is a raised understanding that we need to think about our land differently. What I'm really heartened by, actually, is the interest in understanding the health of the ecosystem in people's backyards. So we are being told that time and time again, and the trendy term is place-based understanding, right? People are, so I know it's only 29, it's a very small number, but those 29 ecological assessments are people that haven't necessarily come to this conversation through any sort of structured catchment group or anything like that. They're coming to it through their processes. And so I think, to me, that's a really interesting indication of the fact that there's a broadening understanding. I think also that sometimes it's about language and perspective, because my sense through you, Mr. Chairman, is that, farmers are very focused, and landowners, on the future generations and on having sustainability as part of their business practices. I think now, though, that there's some shift in how the way in which we do things, and that's the bit that people are coming to terms with and understanding. And so how we have those conversations and how we broaden that understanding across our community is absolutely 100% critical, fundamental to the shift that you're talking about. It's just that the way, some people might see it as different to the way other people might see it. And so, if we, for example, think about some of the learning from our day that we had with Te Marama out at Fort Rose Estuary on the land, and I've seen this before, this is not the first time, that strength of feeling around whenua and in history and future that, Māori feel is longer term than what our farmers might see, but nonetheless is not dissimilar. There's not a dissimilar, it's just that how do you have those conversations? Yeah.
So sort of in summary,
Sorry,
people, no, but it's a really good question and a good answer. Landowners know where they want to be, they see where they want to be. It's just understanding the actions and what's required to get to that point. They have
Yeah, and we have a lot of knowledge within this organisation, through Mr. Chairman, that we need to package, right, and share it into our community in a way that is accessible. So, yeah.
I guess that's the,
And the other thing too is when we think about our programs of work, and I've been conscious of this over the last few years, we have some groups that we know who will understand and come to the discussion very quickly. But it's important that the programs we offer don't just talk to those people. So we talk to we try and have programs that talk to a wider range of people, so that we're making sure we're starting to kind of filter that information through different kind of groups.
that's good. Look, thank you very much, Fiona, for that. I'll find someone to move that report of yours, Fiona. That's excellent. And John to second that. All those in favour?
Thank you.
Against, that's carried. Thanks very much. At this point, we're just after 12 o'clock. Shall we carry on? We've got another meeting scheduled here at 1 o'clock. So we're going to run into the.
I'd move we carry on, Mr. Chairman, or recover, just so we've only got one more item. We're break. It's like herding cats.
That'd be great. No, not think that's thanks very much. Yes, carried. Thank you very much. No extraordinary or urgent business. That's none. So let's see if we can move into public excluded. Thank you. There's always some reasons for this, isn't there? So you better check them out.
There are 4 reasons. The first one being to prevent disclosure or use of official information for improper gain or advantage. The second one is to carry on without prejudice or disadvantage negotiations, including commercial and industrial negotiations. The third one is to enable any local authority holding the information to carry out without prejudice or disadvantage commercial activities. And the final one is to prevent the disclosure of information which would 1, be contrary to the provisions of a specified enactment, or 2, constitute contempt of court or of the House of Representatives.
Jeremy, second that. Thanks. All those in favour?
Aye.
Yes, that's carried. We're just going to pass some minutes from the last